The smell of Lori's Chanel No. 5 hit me first when I pulled out her chair. Same perfume she wore on our first date at that shitty seafood shack in '98. 25 years later, the candlelight at Angelo's Steakhouse made her laugh lines look softer than they'd been in months. To surviving me, I toasted, clinking her Merlot glass hard enough to crack the facade. Her smile didn't reach past the rim. Halfway through the filet mignon she'd barely touched, I noticed her left hand kept vanishing below the tablecloth. The diamond tennis bracelet I'd pawned my Harley parts to buy last Christmas flashed under the lights each time she pulled it back up. "You expecting a call from the president?" I asked, nodding at her lap where her phone buzzed against the linen for the third time. "Just Diane," she said too fast, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her tell since junior prom when I caught her sneaking cigarettes. The divorce mediation's getting ugly with her ex. I let my fork screech against the plate. "Funny. Your sister's been dead to you since she borrowed your Camry and returned it smelling like a meth lab." Lori's knife slipped, sending a glob of béarnaise sauce skidding across the tablecloth like a yellow comet. "People change, Brian." "Sure." I watched her thumb dance across the screen under the table, the blue light reflecting in her pupils. "Just like you changed our bedroom passcode last week." Her laugh came out shrill, drawing stares from the couple celebrating their 50th across the room. The wife's emerald brooch caught the light, same shade as the motel keychain I'd found in Lori's gym bag last Tuesday. "You're being paranoid," she said, reaching for her clutch. "Bathroom. Don't let them box up my leftovers." Her leather jacket slid off the back of her chair as she fled. I caught it before it hit the floor, the inner pocket gaping open. Nestled between a wad of peppermint gum and her emergency Xanax sat a crumpled receipt from the Marriott, $219.83 charged to our joint visa. Checkout time stamped 11:47 a.m. And there, in the memo field, a hurried D circled 3 times in blue pen. The steak turned to gravel in my mouth. Across the restaurant, Lori's phone lit up face up on the bathroom sink through the cracked door. 3 words glowed in the darkness. "Don't tell Brian." I left the jacket exactly as I'd found it, down to the spearmint gum wrapper clinging to the lining. When she returned, lips freshly stained and eyes bright with whatever lie she'd rehearsed in the mirror, I fed her a slice of chocolate toward off my fork. "Remember our honeymoon?" I asked, watching her throat constrict as she swallowed. "How we'd sneak champagne into those shitty couples therapy sessions." Her smile wavered. "You're mixing up years again." "Am I?" I licked chocolate off the tines, tasting copper. Funny how memory works. The waitress brought the check in a black folio. Lori reached for it first, another first in 25 years. I let her. Watched her hands shake as she signed Brian and Lori Harper in perfect cursive, the same way she'd signed our mortgage papers, our divorce papers, our son's death certificate. The receipt burned in my pocket all the way home. The whiskey bottle glinted like a thread on my workbench. I'd been staring at it since 2 a.m., grease-stained fingers tracing the label Lori hates. Wild turkey, the same rock gut we drank stealing kisses behind her father's auto shop. Her keys jangled in the door at 6:47 a.m., the exact minute our son would have turned 18 if he'd drawn breath. "You look like hell," she said, heels dangling from her hand. The left strap was torn, same as the night she went into labor during that ice storm. I let the silence curdle. Watched her eyes dart to the security panel I'd installed last month after the break-in. "How's Diane's divorce?" Her laugh came out tinny. "You wouldn't believe the stories. Alimony payments, hidden assets. Funny." I spun my laptop around. The bank statement glowed between us, $12, $382.76 missing from our savings. Hidden assets indeed. For 3 heartbeats, her mask slipped. Then the tears came. Not the messy sobs from when we lost the baby, but calculated droplets. I had to loan it to her. You know how Jason is. Jason who blew up Diane's mailbox with an M80 at our wedding? I clicked to the transfer date. This was 2 days before she supposedly reached out. The coffee mug shattered against the backsplash. Shards of our first Christmas skittered across the tile. "God, you're insufferable. Always picking. Like you picked our bedroom lock last Tuesday." Her breath hitched. She yanked open the junk drawer, third from the left, where she keeps the spare Advil and lies. "I can't do this." "Do what?" "Pretend you're not screwing someone at the Marriott every Thursday." The slap left my ear ringing. Her handprint burned hotter than the whiskey I'd resisted. "Go to hell," she whispered, the same words she'd hissed through labor pains. The garage camera caught her peeling out in the Lexus. I waited 13 minutes, the exact time it takes to drive to Diane's condo, before logging into the Nest feed. Rewound to midnight. There she was, 11:58 p.m., hair down, wearing that red wrap dress I'd bought for her 40th. The timestamp blinked midnight as she entered room 214 alone. My knuckles bled before I realized I'd punched through the drywall. Behind the plaster, something glinted, Diane's class ring from '96, crusted with pink insulation. I'd buried it there after their blowout fight over the Camry. The whiskey finally burned its way down. I texted Diane's number for the first time in a decade. Heard about the divorce. Need help hiding assets? Her reply came swift as a snake bite. New phone, who dis? But the read receipt said Lori's iPhone. At dawn, I pulled the SD card from the garage cam. The motel footage played on loop as I cross-referenced withdrawal dates with Lori's yoga class schedule. Every Thursday. Every fucking week. The last sip tasted like gasoline. I smashed the bottle against my workbench, glass sparkling like the diamond chips missing from her bracelet. Game on, darling. The GPS tracker was smaller than a tic-tac, one perk of rebuilding transmission systems for 30 years. I wedged it into the Lexus's rear differential housing while Lori was at her book club, my calloused fingers threading wires through grease-caked crevices. The app beeped to life as her brake lights disappeared around the corner, that little red dot pulsing like a fresh wound on my screen. For 14 days, I watched her orbit between the Marriott and Diane's condo in perfect geometric hell. Every Thursday at 7:06 p.m., she'd park and stall B12. Every Friday morning, $347.18 would vanish from our account, always under the spa day category she'd added to our budgeting app. Carl found me elbow-deep in the Camaro's engine bay Sunday afternoon, 3 empty Budweisers lined up on the workbench like soldiers. Heard Lori's getting limber, he chuckled, tossing me a 4th. Saw her Lexus at that new storage mart off Route 9 last week. Place looked swanky, security gates, climate control. The wrench slipped, stripping a bolt. She's been redecorating. Must be redecorating Versailles. Carl leaned against my '78 Firebird, the one Lori made me park on the street. Whole row of Louis Vuitton boxes when they left my cousin's unit open. You guys going into counterfeit handbags. The beer turned to battery acid in my throat. I pictured Lori's hands, manicured claws clutching those monogram boxes while I ate Hungry Man dinners. Better than his meth operation. Carl's laugh died when he saw my face. Shit, man. You didn't know. The app pinged. Red dot moving toward the Marriott again. I chucked the wrench into the shadows where a family of feral cats scattered. Know what's funnier? Her yoga instructor's a married gastroenterologist named Steve who checks into room 214 every Thursday. Carl whistled. Guys got balls treating hemorrhoids and fucking wives in the same zip code. The cat circled back, licking transmission fluid off the concrete. I pulled up the tracker's history, 12 weeks of identical routes, timed to the minute. Precision that would have impressed NASA. Remind me to check your cousin's unit next time. Already did. Carl tossed me a key card with Storage Mart's logo. Unit 306. Motion sensors disabled Tuesday. The cats yowled as I revved the Firebird to life. Through the exhaust fumes, I watched Carl text someone, probably his cousin, probably warning them. Let him. The GPS dot pulsed faster now, Lori's Lexus idling in the Marriott lot. I raised the last beer in salute. To limber wives and stupid husbands. The cats didn't drink. The storage unit smelled like Lori's mother's funeral roses, that cloying decay masked by chemical sweetness. I jimmied the lock with a brake spring in 6 seconds flat, the steel door rattling up to reveal a sarcophagus of white cardboard boxes stamped with cursive Italian logos. Motion sensor lights flickered on, catching dust motes that swirled like ash around a rack of dresses still sheathed in plastic. I recognized the scarlet Gucci number first, same one she'd modeled drunkenly last New Year's, giggling about trophy wife energy. The price tag dangling from the sleeve read $3,799. Our joint account hadn't bled that much. The first box crumbled in my grip, spilling Birkins onto concrete. Not the factory rejects she'd shown me from her Facebook resale group, but pristine crocodile skins with serial numbers that gleamed under the fluorescence. Beneath them lay a leather-bound ledger, its pages filled with Lori's looping script. March 12th, $15,000 to D, liquidation fee. April 3rd, $8,000 to D, client retention. May 17th, $22.5 thousand to D, final settlement. Each entry corresponded with withdrawals from our helic. I snapped photos until my phone overheated, the flash catching something wedged between pages, a crumpled Delta receipt. 2 first-class tickets to Belize. Departure date, next Thursday. The storage unit's AC kicked on, blowing the scent of Diane's signature Virginia Slims across my face. I followed it to a corner stacked with Louis Vuitton trunks. Inside, men's Rolexes still in Jama Shop packaging, 3 gold bars wrapped in Reynolds foil, and a Ziploc bag of diamond earrings that matched the ones Lori lost at the YMCA pool last summer. My wedding band caught the light as I pocketed a receipt from Cartier, $18, $600 charged 6 days after our son's memorial service, for a bracelet she'd claimed was cubic zirconia from Target. The ledger's last page stopped me cold. June 5th, $47,000 to D, cleanup. June 12th, terminate agreement. Beneath it, in Diane's jagged scrawl, he's sniffing around. Stick to the script, or we all sink. I was reciting the alphabet backward to stop my hands from shaking, a trick from my Nam days, when headlights swept across the unit. Ducking behind a rack of fur coats, I watched Carl's cousin chain smoke outside Unit 308. He unloaded crates of Samsung TVs, their screens reflecting my distorted face in the darkness. The Belize receipt crinkled in my fist. Departure time, 10:15 a.m., right when Lori's yoga retreat was supposed to start. Back home, I fed the photos through our wireless printer, the same one that spat out ultrasound images 20 years ago. The mechanical were drowned out the memory of Lori's hands signing mortgage papers, hospital forms, forged receipts. In the garage, I tacked the evidence to my tool board between torque wrenches and socket sets. The Belize ticket went center stage, pierced by a screwdriver through the seat numbers. First class, huh? I whispered to the feral cats watching from the rafters. Hope she packed sunscreen. They yowled as I revved the Firebird's engine, already mapping the route to Diane's blackmail stash. The bourbon tasted like betrayal with a hint of coconut shampoo, Sarah's signature scent, same as the night she comforted me after Lori's 3rd miscarriage. I'd set the stage carefully. Marvin Gaye on the Bluetooth speaker she gifted us last Christmas, Lori's Chanel No. 5 dabbed on the collar of my least grease-stained shirt. Sarah arrived precisely at 8 in Lori's ivory Valentino dress, the one reserved for special occasions. Her stilettos click-clacked across the garage floor where I'd proposed. Well, she purred, setting down a bottle of Patron with a label that read "To New Beginnings" in Lori's handwriting. Never took you for a cliché. Desperate times. I poured 2 fingers into the oil funnel we used as a shot glass. Heard you're an expert at revving stalled engines. Her laugh echoed off the tool racks as she straddled my workbench, Lori's favorite perch for handing me wrenches. You know I only play with vintage models. Her foot hooked around my calf. But this? She flicked the Belize ticket I'd left conspicuously on the vise. Cheap theatrics, Brian. The garage door rumbled open 2 minutes early. Lori's shadow stretched across the concrete like a guillotine blade. Sarah didn't flinch. She leaned in, cherry-red nails fixing my collar while her other hand slipped the storage unit key from my pocket. Showtime, she breathed against my jaw. Lori's keys hit the floor with a janitorial clang. What the hell is this? Sarah turned slow, stretching the Valentino's seams. Marriage counseling, honey. You should try it. I watched Lori's eyes inventory the scene. The Patron, the Marvin Gaye, the vice grip still warm from where Sarah's thigh had been. Her gaze snagged on the security monitor showing the Lexus's empty parking spot. Carl texted me. She whispered, clutching her yoga mat like a life preserver. Said you've been entertaining. Sarah twirled the key around her finger. Should have seen him last Thursday. Real hands-on learner. The barb landed perfectly. Lori lunged for the workbench, sending torque wrenches clattering. I caught her wrist an inch from Sarah's smirking face, her pulse thrumming against my grease-blackened fingerprints. "Careful, darling." I nodded at the monitor where our Nest Cam now displayed the ransacked storage unit. Wouldn't want Diane's client retention fees going public. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. "He knows about Belize. Burn everything." The sender's contact photo, a grinning Diane making devil horns, froze Lori's venom mid-hiss. "Tick-tock," Sarah sang, pocketing the key. "Last one to the fire gets third-degree burns." I let Lori's wrist drop. Her Valentino slithered to the floor as she fled. Sarah licked tequila off the oil funnel. "She'll be at Diane's in 12 minutes. GPS tracker says the Lexus is already warm." The garage door descended, sealing us in with the ghosts of better betrayals. "Still think I'm a cliché?" I asked. She left her lipstick on the funnel, crimson as the Gucci dress rotting in Unit 306. "Baby, you're a fucking masterpiece." The slap echoed off the hydraulic lifts like a gunshot. Sarah's head snapped back, her cheek blooming red under the garage fluorescence. "You got her, slut," Lori hissed, the torn strap of her heels swinging like a pendulum. "Screwing my husband in my own." "Relax, Cinderella." Sarah dabbed blood from her split lip with my shop rag. "We were just comparing notes on your timeshare scam." I tossed the motel receipts onto the oil-stained concrete. They fanned out like a dead man's poker hand. 12 weekly visits to room 214, each neatly aligned with Lori's book club nights. "Your sister's divorce mediator must be a real workaholic." Lori's heels snapped clean off as she lunged for the papers. "You don't understand. Diane's been hiding from Jason's loan sharks. They torched her Audi last week." "Funny." I kicked the Belize ticket toward her. "Pyromaniacs who leave paper trails." Her breathing hitched, the same ragged rhythm as during labor. We needed to disappear. Just until things cooled down." Sarah snorted, examining her ruined manicure. $47K in cleanup fees must have bought one hell of an ice pack. The security monitor chose that moment to flicker, displaying the ransacked storage unit. Lori froze mid-reach for the tickets. Her reflection warped in the cracked screen. "You broke into Diane's. Our storage unit." I corrected, tapping the Cartier receipt stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a uterus, left over from the fertility clinic days. "Funny what counts as marital property." Lori's hand flew to her bare wrist where the bracelet should have been. The cats yowled as Sarah stood, adjusting the stolen Valentino's bodice. "My cue to exit this Lifetime movie." She brushed past Lori, pausing to fix her hair. A folded square of paper dropped into my open toolbox. "Meet me tomorrow. It's worse than you think." Lori didn't notice. She was too busy shredding the Belize tickets, her wedding band catching the light as she mangled the barcodes. "Happy? We're not going." I grabbed her shaking hands, still sticky with Sarah's blood. Funny pronoun choice for a solo reservation. The garage door opened on cue, revealing Carl leaning against his F-150. "Lori, your sister's blowing up my phone. Something about a containment breach." She fled without her shoes. I waited until the Lexus's taillights vanished before fishing out Sarah's note. The paper smelled like Diane's cigarettes and regret. Under the "meet me tomorrow," she'd scribbled an address, the abandoned Kmart parking lot where Lori's water broke. The cats circled my ankles as I lit the note with Lori's forgotten Zippo, watching our initials etched in 1998 curl to ash. "Worse than Belize," I told the cats. "Bets on a timeshare in hell." They just licked tequila off the concrete, where Sarah's stiletto had stabbed the word run. The vinyl booth stuck to my thighs, same diner where Lori announced her first pregnancy over soggy fries. Sarah slid in reeking of nicotine and Donna Karan cashmere mist, the perfume she'd accidentally left in my glove box last fall. She dumped a manila folder between the ketchup and my uneaten pie. "Your wife's not fucking Steve the proctologist," she said, lighting a Virginia Slim with Lori's Zippo. "She's laundering money for Diane's little Ponzi scheme." The first page showed spreadsheets from Diane's former accounting firm, $2.3 million missing. Highlighted entries matched withdrawals from our Helic. Bullshit. Lori can't balance a checkbook. Sarah flipped to surveillance photos, Lori handing a briefcase to a man in a Mets cap outside the Marriott. Me, Frank Valesco, Diane's divorce attorney, who happens to run a shell company called Belizean Bliss Holdings. My thumb found the bullet scar on my ribs from Nam. And you're suddenly Sister Teresa because... Her laugh drew stares from the truckers at the counter. Diane promised me 10%. The bitch paid in counterfeit handbags. She tapped a text chain on her burner phone. Lori, Brian knows. Initiate phase 2. Diane, tell Frank to dump the bonds. Sacrifice the sister if needed. The jukebox skipped as I pressed record on my key fob. Like I'm clean now. Sarah's heel hooked around my ankle under the table. Let's just say I've developed a distaste for women who burn their nests. She nodded toward the parking lot. Through grease-smeared windows, Diane's Prius idled by the dumpsters. Her phone camera flashed twice, once as Sarah adjusted my collar, again when she slid the folder into my jacket. Clock's ticking, mechanic man. Sarah dropped a Kmart receipt with coordinates written in lipstick. Storage units getting emptied tonight. I waited until Diane followed her out before checking the folder again. Tucked behind the spreadsheets was a photo of Lori boarding a Greyhound in 2001, the week after my breakdown. Destination, Albany. Return ticket never used. The waitress refilled my coffee with a trembling hand. Under the saucer, I found a thumb drive coated in ketchup. The label read, "For when you grow a spine." Diane's Prius was gone, but her Ashes to Ashes bumper sticker clung to the diner's dumpster. I fished it out, peeling back the decal to reveal a micro-tracker blinking beneath. Still using the same hiding spots, I muttered, crushing it under my boot. The cats would love this new toy. Back in the Firebird, I replayed the recording. Sarah's voice purred through cracked speakers. Dump the bonds. A notification buzzed. Lori's tracker showed her entering the Marriott. Room 214. I texted Frank's number from Diane's burner. Phase 2 initiated. Cleanup needed. His reply came with a photo attachment, the storage unit's mangled lock. The thumb drive's contents glowed on my phone, security footage of Lori begging Diane to stop. Date stamp, the night our son died. Oh, darling, I whispered to the empty passenger seat. You should have burned harder. The Firebird's engine roared to life, drowning out Lori's recorded sobs. The private investigator smelled like stale Copenhagen and regret. Mickey Malone, ex-NYPD, according to the business card he slid across my workbench, chewed his nicotine gum loud enough to drown out Lori's sobs through the baby monitor. Your sister-in-law's got 7 accounts in the Caymans, he said, slapping a file folder stained with coffee rings. All funneled through a shell company called Harper & Sons. The name punched harder than Lori's slap. Harper & Sons was the garage I dreamed of opening after Nam, the one she convinced me to abandon for her family planning. Mickey tapped a photo of Diane boarding a Cessna with a briefcase handcuffed to her wrist. Flight logs show bi-weekly trips to Nassau since 2016. Your Helic paid for the hangar. I flipped to the last page. A scanned birth certificate from 1999, baby girl Harper, born to Diane Marie Cooper. Father's name redacted. Found this gem in a security deposit box. Mickey grinned, gold molar glinting. Along with your wife's favorite vibrator. Want pics? The baby monitor crackled. Lori's voice rose shrill. He's bluffing. The storage unit proves nothing. Followed by Diane's hiss. Should have let him bleed out in that garage. Mickey raised an eyebrow. Domestic bliss. I paid him in cash from Lori's hidden emergency fund, the one she kept in a tampon box labeled My Doll. The envelope felt lighter without the GPS tracker I'd slipped inside. Confrontation came at 3 a.m. Lori stood framed in the fridge light, clutching a yogurt cup with shaking hands. You look like death, she said, the same greeting she'd given me after my suicide attempt. I spread the offshore documents across the breakfast nook where we'd planned our son's funeral. Harper & Sons. Cute touch. Her spoon clattered. For a heartbeat, I saw the girl who'd held my head through DT withdrawals. Then the mask snapped back. Diane needed cover after her audit. I couldn't. Couldn't let your sister drown alone? I slid the birth certificate forward. Should have told me I was swimming with sharks. She lunged for the paper. I caught her wrist, feeling the scar from her emergency C-section under my thumb. That's not yours. Neither was the $47,000 cleanup fee. I pressed harder. Or the Belize tickets. Or my goddamn dignity. Her free hand flew to the morphine pendant around her neck, The one she'd sworn was costume jewelry. I never slept with anyone. The lie hung between us, fat and stinking. I released her to open the safe behind our wedding photo. Sarah's folder tumbled out, surveillance shots cascading across the floor. Lori froze mid-reach for the knife block. The Polaroid of her handing Frank the briefcase glowed under the stove light. You hired someone? Better than fucking them. I texted our entire church directory group chat. Photos of Sarah fixing my collar set to Benny Hill music. Her phone exploded with alerts. Pastor Rick's response came first. Let us pray for your souls. The laugh ripped from my throat raw. Hallelujah. Diane's thread arrived at dawn. A floral arrangement for our son's memorial garden. Black roses with a card. Stop digging or she dies. But it was the ribbon that stopped me cold, cut from the same bolt as Lori's prom dress. The cats watched me bury the roses in the Firebird's trunk. One dragged out a thorny stem, its yellow eyes reflecting the GPS app on my phone. Lori's dot pulsed at the Marriott. Hear that, Diane? I whispered to the bugs I knew she'd planted. Time to till the garden. The Cayman files burned nicely in the oil drum. Ashes swirled into the shape of a child's face before the rain came. The fire reeked of Estee Lauder pleasures and dead memories. I found her at 3 a.m. kneeling before the hearth, feeding our past to the flames. Pages curled into spectral hands reaching up the chimney. Love letters from my basic training days, back when her handwriting didn't look like forgery. Couldn't sleep, she rasped, ashes clinging to her morphine pendant. The fireplace tools shook in her grip, same ones she'd used to smash my whiskey bottles during the intervention. I nudged a half-charred envelope with my boot. December 12, 1998, the week I'd returned from rehab to find her visiting cousins. My dearest Brian, the doctor says it's not your fault. You miscarried. The words tasted like lit match heads. Her nod sent tears sizzling into the embers. After your overdose. I couldn't risk. Risk what? Me relapsing over a kid we never had. I crouched, catching a fragment of another letter mid-flame. Brian can never know about the baby or Diane. She lunged. We wrestled in the ash pile, her nails raking my arms as I pried the poker loose. The surviving scrap crumbled between us. A Polaroid of Lori holding a swaddled infant. Diane's arm visible in the corner, clutching a hospital bracelet. You carried to term. For 6 hours. She pressed the scorched morphine pendant to her lips. Diane took her, said you'd. Finish the sentence. I shook the photo, its edges disintegrating. Said I'd what? Blame you? Kill myself? Sell the story to fucking Oprah. The baby monitor crackled. Diane's voice from the nursery we'd turned into a gym. Burn the rest, you sentimental cow. Lori scrambled for the fireplace tools. You weren't stable. The VA said. The VA said a lot of things. I yanked open the flue, releasing a storm of blackened confetti into the night. None involved selling our kid to your embezzler sister. Her scream brought the cats running. They circled the ash pile, tails twitching at the scent of betrayal. I pocketed the photo fragment, edges burning through my jeans. Funny timing, I said, nodding at the security monitor. The Lexus's GPS pulsed at a private airstrip. Diane's flight to Belize leaves in 6 hours. She hurled the poker through the screen. Glass rained down as Diane's plane taxied into view. You want a villain? Fine. But that child's death certificate has your signature too. The nursery camera caught it all. Her confession, the burning evidence, my hands sifting through cinders for truth. I uploaded the clip to Diane's cloud storage, CC'd to Frank's burner phone. Lori collapsed into the ash, her sobs syncopated with the Firebird's engine roaring to life in the garage. The GPS tracker blipped, Diane's plane accelerating down the runway. Sleep tight, darling. I whispered, crunching over glass toward the garage. Don't wait up. The nursery monitor flickered one last truth before dying. A shadowed figure slipping the morphine pendant into her pocket. Not Lori. Diane. 20 years earlier. The ambush came in the VA parking lot where I'd blown my kneecap off in '08. Diane stepped from the fog wearing Lori's leather jacket, the one I'd bought her after the first miscarriage. She tossed a stuffed Ziploc at my feet, hospital bracelets, and a VHS tape labeled Brian's Vacation. Your little suicide stunt cost $87,000 in hush money, she drawled. lighting a Virginia Slim with my old Zippo. Lori funneled every cent from my accounts to scrub your paper trail. I crushed a bracelet under my boot. Harper, B. DOB December 12, 98. Bullshit. The VA covered. The VA covered nothing. She kicked the bag, scattering vials of my stolen Oxy scripts. While you played Rambo with a .45, Lori sold her eggs to pay the collectors. 6 rounds. Left her infertile. The security light buzzed overhead, catching the morphine pendant around Diane's neck. Not Lori's. Hers. Funny how trauma makes sisters interchangeable. The VHS tape hissed in my truck's player. Grainy footage showed Lori begging Diane in a hospital supply closet, her face swollen from crying. I'll do anything. Just don't tell Brian they revoked his disability. Diane's voice off camera. Start with the storage unit. The timestamp matched my suicide attempt. The night Lori claimed she was visiting Diane. Your wife's a shitty criminal, but a grade A martyr. Diane flicked ash onto the bullet scar in my windshield. Took the fall for my embezzlement, so you'd keep those sweet VA perks. Even let me blackmail her with your suicide note. She produced a flash drive shaped like a toy car, our son's favorite from the crib I'd built. Merry late Father's Day. The files loaded with a scream. Security footage from the storage unit. Lori sobbing over my suicide note while Diane photographed it. He'll never know, Lori whispered. Just like the baby. Diane's laugh echoed through the cab. Spoiler alert, the kid's alive. And you're still the villain. The flash drive's final file. A 2018 deposition where Lori confessed to Diane's crimes. My husband couldn't survive prison, she told stone-faced auditors. I'll take the charges. Diane's taillights vanished into the fog. I sat clutching the toy car, its wheels stiff from decades of disuse. The GPS tracker in Lori's Lexus pinged, not at the Marriott, but the neonatal ward where we'd buried our hopes in '98. The cats were waiting when I got home. They watched me pry open the toy car, spilling out a micro SD card loaded with offshore account passwords. Lori's handwriting on the label, for when you're ready. Her tracker moved steadily east. Toward Grace College. Toward our daughter. I poured wild turkey into the toy car, toasting the nursery monitor where Diane's shadow still lurked. Round 2, bitch. The liquor burned less than the truth. The voicemails crackled through Lori's old Sony boombox, the same one that played our wedding mixtape as she bled out on our bathroom floor. I'd fished it from the attic, just clinging to the play button like ash. Message number 17. Brian, it's me. The, carburetor's acting up again. Maybe take it to Diane's guy. Dated 3 days before my suicide attempt. I rewound. Listened harder. Beneath Lori's forced cheer, a metallic clanging echoed, the distinct sound of cell doors at Rikers. Message number 23. Don't forget Carl's birthday. He loves those. Wrench sets from Harbor Freight. The click-click of a lighter flared mid-sentence. Diane's Zippo. The cats arched their backs as red paint dripped down the kitchen window. I thought it was sunset glare until the smell hit. Sherwin-Williams' Scarlet Siren. Same shade as Diane's Prius. Snitch screamed across our siding in jagged strokes, the T's crossed with a symbol I hadn't seen since Nam, a phoenix rising. Our unit's call sign. The baby monitor in the garage buzzed. Carl's voice floated through static. Told you he'd crack. Should have used lie like I said. I palmed a lug wrench and followed the paint splatters to his driveway. Through the grimy garage window, he scrubbed crimson streaks off his hands with mineral spirits, the same solvent we'd used to erase Jason's blood from Diane's Camry. Late spring cleaning? I leaned against his jacked-up Silverado, the wrench cold against my thigh. Carl froze, Sud slithering down arms tattooed with her old platoon numbers. Kids these days. Tagging shit like they know what a carburetor means in wife speak? I kicked over his rinse bucket. The water swirled pink around a crumpled Harbor Freight receipt. Funny. Lori told me to buy your wrench set right before the auditors came. His boot nudged a paint can under the workbench. You're paranoid. Always were. I grabbed his wrist, thumb digging into the fresh chemical burn. Paranoia is what kept you from fragging me into Nong. Remember? The garage door opener whined. Diane's Prius idled at the curb, trunk gaping. Carl yanked free, chucking the scrub brush at my head. Should have let Charlie finish you. The cat swarmed the spilled paint, tracking bloody paw prints back to my shredded front door. Inside, the boombox played message number 42 on loop. Brian. I can't keep, a muffled sob, then Diane's hiss. Stick to the script. I traced the Phoenix graffiti with Lori's nail polish remover. The symbol dissolved, revealing a phone number etched beneath Grace College's registrar office. Diane's taillights winked as she peeled out. Carl's Silverado backfired, leaving rubber streaks over Lori's marigolds. The lug wrench felt lighter now, balanced for throwing. Wrench sets, I muttered, dialing the number. A perky voice answered. Admissions. How can I direct your call? The cats yowled as I smashed the boombox against the wall. Plastic shards rained down, exposing a microcassette labeled Final Warning in Lori's hand. I pocketed it, stepping over the snitch now seeping into our foundation. The real message wasn't on the walls, it was in the paint fumes clinging to my boots, the same stench that hung over Diane's borrowed Camry when she'd tried to outrun her demons. Lori's tracker pinged from Grace College's parking lot. I revved the Firebird, crushing Carl's abandoned scrub brush under my tires. Better get new buckets, I told the rearview. This pig's going to slaughter. The cassette player swallowed the microcassette whole. Lori's voice, raw and ancient, filled the cab. If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. But she's alive, Brian. Our girl's Ollie. The tape chewed itself into silence. I let the static scream. The garage reeked of bleach and cowardice. I cornered Carl between his prized '67 Mustang and a wall of Snap-on tools still in their packaging, gifts from Diane. If the happy betrayal ribbons were any clue. He gripped a torque wrench like a crucifix. Don't make me do this, Sarge. Too late. I tossed his Vietnam dog tags onto the workbench, the blood groove along the edge still caked with Da Nang mud. Remember what we did to collaborators? His Adam's apple bobbed. That was war. And this. I pressed play on the baby monitor. Lori's voice wavered through static. Told you he'd find the locker. Diane's gonna skin us, Al. Carl swung. The wrench whistled past my ear, embedding in drywall beside a photo of us hoisting beers at his wedding. I drove my knee into his sciatic nerve, old field tactic, and pinned him with the lug wrench against his jugular. Keys or teeth? Choose. He spat out a Safester keycard smeared with nicotine. Locker 214. Combination's your discharge date. The irony burned November 11th, 1998. The day Lori claimed she'd miscarried. Lori ambushed me in the Safester parking lot, her eyes wild under a hoodie stolen from my side of the closet. Please, she begged, clutching my arm where Carl's wrench had left a bruise shaped like Belize. However you think this ends, it doesn't. She'll bury us. I shook her off, nodding toward the security camera. Wave to Diane's live stream, darling. The locker hissed open. Stacked between Diane's tennis trophies and my stolen service medals were bearer bonds wrapped in familiar pink insulation, same as the wall I'd punched through. The serial numbers matched the Helic withdrawals. Lori's hand flew to her morphine pendant. Those aren't what you think. I fanned the bonds under the flickering bulb. Oh, I know. $5 million in untraceable paper. Enough to disappear. Her scream echoed off the aluminum walls. You're stealing from a blackmail fund to blackmail the blackmailer? That's insane. Insane, I agreed, pocketing a bond with a serial number ending in 1212, our daughter's birthday, is what happens when you marry into a family of financial wizards. The security monitor pinged. Feed number 4 showed Diane slinking into the facility, her Prius parked askew by the dumpsters. Lori lunged for the bonds. We wrestled amidst the pink fluff until her hoodie ripped, revealing fresh scratches down her back, Carl's desperate signature. I uploaded the SafeStar footage to our shared iCloud, Lori tackling me at 5:47 a.m., bonds fluttering like wedding rice. Diane's face filled the frame, mouthing checkmate, before the feed died. Lori slumped against the locker, clutching a bond shredded in the scuffle. You win. Just let Grace stay dead. The cats greeted me with a decapitated mouse on the workbench, their tribute. I fed the bonds through the paper shredder, watching $5 million become confetti for a funeral we'd never get to have. Diane's burner buzzed. Clever boy. Now meet your daughter. Attached, a selfie of Grace Harper grinning outside her dorm, unaware of the bullseye painted through her father's rage. I stirred the bond shreds into the cat's kibble. Bon appetit, traitors. The Safester keycard melted nicely on the exhaust manifold. As the plastic fumes mixed with Lori's Chanel No. 5 still clinging to my shirt, I realized revenge smelled like burnt credit and inherited sin. The trunk latch on Diane's Prius still stuck. Same defect I'd fixed for her 3 DUIs ago. I wedged the bonds between spare yoga mats reeking of coconut sunscreen, their serial numbers glinting under a streetlight in exact sequence. 121298, 121299, 121300. Our daughter's birthday, counting toward a future that never was. The 911 call tasted like bourbon and justice. Yeah, some lunatics waving a gun at Safester. License plate Ashes 911. I hung up as sirens wailed, peeling Diane's I Heart Suit Belize bumper sticker to reveal my dog tag welded beneath. Insurance. Diane strolled out at 6:03 a.m., Starbucks in hand, and a burner phone playing Grace's TikTok dance videos. She froze mid-sip when the cruisers boxed her in. Brian, you rat-fuck son of. I leaned against my Firebird, applauding as cuffs snapped over her French tips. Bravo. Best performance since you faked that miscarriage. Her spit landed on my boot. Enjoy the encore. The cop car hadn't moved 10 feet when Lori's Lexus careened into the lot. She crashed through the passenger door, manicured hands leaving bloody streaks on Diane's window. I told you to run. Diane mouthed something that made Lori collapse against the Prius. Her sleeve rode up, revealing fresh track marks along that scar from our son's funeral. You didn't check the bonds, she whispered. The cop flipped open the trunk. Neon spray paint screamed across the yoga mats. Happy birthday, Grace. Lori's fist connected with my sternum. They're not Diane's bonds. They're hers. College fund we. Her morphine pendant cracked against my chest. Diane carried her. Birthed her. Let me pretend. The parking lot tilted. Memory fragments detonated. Diane's appendectomy during Lori's second trimester. The bassinet she'd kept in her storage unit. Formula cans in her trash the week Grace was born. Lori clawed at the arrest report, her shriek blending with Diane's laughter. She was my sister and your daughter's mother. Those bonds are Grace's trust. The cop frowned at the spray-painted mats. This some kind of family prank. Diane pressed her face to the cruiser's mesh. Ask him where he was December 12, 1998. The bonds fluttered in the wind. Each serial number now a countdown to the night I'd OD'd in a VA parking lot. The same night Diane checked into maternity under Lori's name. Lori yanked a locket from her bra, a newborn's footprint inked on paper thinner than our vows. You held her, you idiot. In the NICU. Thought she was our donor baby. The cop cuffed me for trespassing. Diane's smirk burned through the rear window as they drove off. Lori stuffed the locket down my shirt, her breath sour with betrayal and Xanax. She'll tell Grace everything now. Her keys jabbed my jugular. Hope you like being the monster who jailed her real mom. The Prius's trunk springs creaked. Nestled under the bonds was a VHS tape I hadn't planted, Brian's first fatherhood class, scrawled in Lori's hand. The cats were waiting when I got home. They watched me feed the tape to the wood chipper, purring as celluloid snowed across Diane's blackmail demands. Grace's TikTok played on loop from Diane's burner phone abandoned in my truck. Our daughter's laugh echoed Lori's from a lifetime ago, each giggle a nail in the coffin of every lie I'd swallowed. Round 3. I toasted the cats with antifreeze-scented coffee. Winner gets a lifetime of therapy. They just licked bond confetti off their paws, eyes glowing like the exit signs in Grace's delivery room, the ones I'd stared at while Diane screamed through labor, masked as my wife. The bassinet reeked of Johnson's baby wash and menthol cigarettes. Through the NICU's fishbowl glass, 24-year-old Lori rocked a swaddled bundle while Diane snapped Polaroids with hands still stained from my suicide attempt. She has his nose, Lori whispered, tracing the infant's face. Thank Christ that's all, Diane muttered, adjusting the hospital bracelet that read Lori Harper. Sign the papers before he wakes up. The memory burned clearer than my OD hallucinations. Lori's postpartum scream echoing through the ward as nurses whisked Grace away. I'd thought it was phantom pain from losing our son. Turns out I'd been holding my daughter's hand through the incubator porthole while Diane snorted Demerol in the parking lot. Present day Lori hurled the photo album at my head. Pages fanned open midair. Grace's first steps at Diane's McMansion, birthday parties where Lori posed as Aunt Lolo, graduation photos with Diane's arm tight around our daughter's shoulders. She thinks I'm her godmother. Lori clawed at her morphine pendant. Diane threatened to tell the IRS about your suicide funds if I ever contacted her. The cats arched as I flipped to the last page. Grace's college ID. Biomedical engineering major. Dean's list. Same lopsided smile I'd seen in Lori's prom photos. Blackmail's a family tradition. I tore out the page, revealing a safety deposit key taped beneath. Like hiding your kid sister's meth habit. Lori's fist connected with the bullet scar. I protected you. After the overdose, the VA was going to commit me. I yanked open my shirt, revealing the dog tag welded to my chest. The microchip inside hummed, Diane's final gift. They did. For 72 hours. Plenty of time for you to sell our daughter. The NICU bracelet fluttered from the album. Baby girl Harper, 5 pounds 3 ounces. Lori lunged, but I pressed it against the chip. The wall safe hissed open, disgorging surveillance photos of Grace. Laughing outside her dorm, flirting at a coffee shop, dissecting cadavers in lab. You stalked her? Lori's shriek drew blood where her nails dug in. Protecting my investment, I thumbed Grace's LinkedIn, a scholarship fund named Harper and Sons. The same offshore account that bought Diane's silence. Lori crumpled, her sobs syncing with the chip's Geiger counter clicks. She's applying to med school, wants to cure veterans' PTSD. The irony tasted like napalm. I fed Grace's photos through the shredder, watching her face spiral into the same drain where I'd dumped Diane's ashes. Hear this. The taser prongs hit Lori's thigh before she could reach the panic button. She convulsed against the shredded remains of our daughter's childhood, her scream muffled by Grace's baby blanket. The chip's coordinates led to a P.O. box stuffed with letters. Every birthday card Lori never sent. I doused them in transmission fluid, the ink bleeding Grace's name into a Rorschach hellscape. Happy 21st, kiddo, I whispered, tossing the match. The flames danced with Lori's shadow puppets from better days. Through the smoke, I almost saw Grace's face. Not in the fire, but in the rear view as I peeled toward her campus. Dog tag burning a brand over my heart. Diane's final text blinked through the inferno. She's in the library. Break her gently. The taser buzzed in my pocket, freshly charged. Daddy's coming. The visitation room stank of industrial bleach and Diane's Chanel No. 5, same stolen bottle Lori kept in her nightstand. Through the bulletproof glass, my reflection warped across Diane's smirk as guards shackled her to the table. Bring me a souvenir from Grace's graduation, she purred, rattling the taser burn on her wrist. The NICU footage played on loop in my head. Diane's hands, raw from scrubbing Lori's blood off her skin, cradling Grace while I convulsed in the psych ward. She calls me Mom now, Diane whispered. Thinks Lori abandoned her for a bottle. The taser prongs were in her neck before the guard's coffee cooled. Diane gargled laughter, thrashing against her restraints as 50,000 volts danced between us. She has your eyes. The guards pried me off, my knuckles splitting on Diane's teeth. She spat blood onto the glass, finger painting a lopsided heart. Tell Lori I want pancakes for our mother-daughter brunch. Extra syrup, like Grace likes. Security footage from Grace's dorm TV flashed on the guard's monitor. Diane's arrest playing on CNN, our daughter's face frozen mid-bite into a cafeteria sandwich. The caption, local accountant charged in $5 million bond theft. Diane licked crimson off her lips. Oops. Forgot to mention I enrolled her in my alumni newsletter. The guard's taser bit my kidney as Diane mouthed her ultimatum. I memorized the Morse code of her acrylic nails, tapping drop charges, or she dies against the table. They dragged me out past the holding cells. Diane's cackle chased me into the parking lot, where Lori's Lexus idled with Grace's playlist blasting cats in the cradle. The taser's second prong hid under my tongue. Insurance. I bit down as Lori's text lit up Diane's burner phone. She knows. Coming for you. Attached, a screenshot of Grace's Instagram story. Anyone know a good family therapist? Hashtag daddy issues. The guard's boot connected with my ribs. Through the pain, I smiled at the security feed, still playing Grace's confusion. Let Diane see. Let her choke on the realization that some legacies can't be shackled. The taser's final charge sparked against the jail's mainframe. Lights died. Alarms wailed. Somewhere in the chaos, Diane's scream curdled into something primal. Not the queen, but the pawn finally cornered. I limped to the Firebird, tasting copper and triumph. The glove box hid Grace's acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins, the one Diane had framed in her office. Guess we're both alumni now, I told the ghost of the man who thought vengeance had an endpoint. The taser prongs glowed in the rear view, twin beacons guiding me toward the only legacy left unburned. Tick-tock, Diane. Part 16, Epilogue. The nursery's nightlight cast a sickly glow over Grace's stick figure drawings taped to walls we'd sworn to repaint. Lori knelt amid the wreckage of crayon masterpieces, a family portrait with 3 sons, a house with smoke pouring from its chimney, a dog labeled Daddy's truck. Her tears warped the dates scrawled in the corners. Age 5, age 7, age 16. Years Diane had scribbled over with red marker. Mother's Day 2012, graduation, college move-in. I palmed the flash drive from Diane's safe deposit box, its casing still dented from Lori's desperate throws. The files inside weren't just blackmail, they were blueprints. Offshore accounts, scholarship funds, a DNA test dated 3 days after Grace's birth, proving what Lori's lies couldn't. 99.7% paternity match. She drew these for you, Lori rasped, clutching a sketch of a man with wrenches for hands. Diane mailed them back, said they were distracting. The plane ticket crinkled in my back pocket. One way to Baltimore, departure timed with Grace's organic chemistry final. I'd memorized her syllabus, her gym schedule, the cafe where she sipped lavender lattes while Diane's henchmen snapped photos. Lori lunged for the flash drive. You'll destroy her. Destroy. I flicked open my Zippo, the flame reflecting in Grace's childhood piggy bank, filled not with coins, but shredded bonds. I'm enrolling in Parents' Weekend. The taser prongs hid in my boot, charged and ready. Lori's morphine pendant glinted as she collapsed onto Grace's My First Mechanics kit, the tiny wrench set I'd bought, but never sent. She'll hate you, Lori whispered. She already does. I thumbed Grace's Instagram. A selfie with Diane captioned "Real moms don't lie." The Uber idled outside, trunk loaded with gifts, a carburetor from my Firebird. Lori's unsigned divorce papers. Diane's severed bumper sticker, I heartsuit blackmail. As the screen cut to black, the taser's charge hummed in sync with the airport's departure board. Somewhere over Pennsylvania, a text blinked onto Diane's burner. Sometimes justice needs a father's touch. Then, static, and the mechanical purr of a rebuilt engine roaring to life.